What up, Steeler Nation? It's Matty from the Touchdown Under Network on YouTube, Steelers TDU on Apple, Anchor, and Spotify. Bringing to you another Steelers drafted player. Just quick review and analysis. We didn't get to do the round 4 selection, Nick Herbig, or the round 7 selections in Trice and Anderson, Trice Jr. and Anderson. Due to the fact we're doing a 6.5 hour live stream, absolutely crazy. We kicked that off at 2 a.m. in the morning, Australian time, for day 3. But I did want to get this out there. I know that people are really interested in our Keanu Benton, our Darnell Washington videos, particularly. If you haven't caught those, go back and check them out, particularly Keanu Benton. I think a lot of people are sleeping on him. And then Mark and I did our reviewing and grading of the overall draft yesterday. But I know that there's people out there that might just be, there's still fans that aren't necessarily fully in tune at the moment. You might be having a busy week. You may have had something occur over the weekend. So you want to know who Nick Herbig is. So that's what this show will do. So excited to do that. We'll do a day 7-1 probably tomorrow, maybe the next following day, and then we'll look at the UDFAs as a cohort. Right now, there's the fullback running back out of Iowa that people are getting enamored by. I think the wide receiver kick returner guy could be interesting, but I want to wait till the UDFA process is finished before we look at the context of what those guys might mean and what their realistic shot is of making the Steelers roster. So let's get into it with Nick Herbig. One thing that was interesting, I did a top 75 across all 3 days of the draft that was Steelers fits and my draft board based on those fits. 70 plus went. I've got to look at the final bits in round 7 on those. But yeah, well, I know at least 70 plus went. In round 1, I'd said to remember that the Steelers needed to get value there and a starter for 5 years and someone they could rely upon with that. They got that in Broderick Jones. I also talked about trenchy, not trendy. And that certainly was the trend for the Steelers across the draft. You had, the Broderick Jones taken round 1, Keanu Benton round 2. If you want to argue Nick Herbig, who we're just about to talk about in round 4, in the trenches there. And then you can say Spencer Anderson, of course, in round 7. So definitely the trenchy, not trendy, situation was the case and theme to the draft. I did consider when I did the top 75 trade ups and trade down, the 2 cornerbacks I'd listed if the Steelers would trade up with Devin Witherspoon and Christian Gonzalez, and the tackle I'd said trade up was Broderick Jones. He was my top tackle in the draft. So excited to see the Steelers now him at 14 with a minimal trade. We said Addison wasn't happening. It didn't. And the sexy pick wasn't it across many, apart from Porter Jr. maybe. None of those picks were the sexy pick for most Steelers fans, or even more, even if it was just the NFL. But let's get into Nick Herbig. So Nick Herbig played 3 years at Wisconsin, where the Steelers already have 4 guys on the roster from them, 3 guys on the as potential starters or depth pieces. Starters obviously T.J. Watt. There, then you've got Isaiah Loudermilk. So it's kind of cool from Wisconsin in that regard. Now you've got Keanu Benton as well, and you've also got Nick Herbig. So they're your 4 guys. G starter, 6'2", 240 pounds, more played at 228. He put on some size during the draft process, mainly because there was concerns around, could he at that weight play in the NFL? Probably he would struggle as a 3-4 outside linebacker. And so people kept projecting him as an off-the-ball linebacker. Could he move inside, etc.? I personally, and we'll go into a few things, do think that he will play outside, maybe inside on some packages. People forget that on a sub-package and moving a guy inside or even in a 4-3, TJ Watt could move inside. And TJ Watt's had, remember those interceptions? Remember that interception he had very early in his career? I think it was week 6 in his rookie year. He could do that as well. So I'm less about that. I think you need to look at him at outside, particularly when we look at some of the draft to scout profiles that we'll share in a moment. But career, 21 sacks, 14 quarterback hits, 45 hurries. He has a 14.2% missed tackle rate. Again, I wouldn't like to see it out in the middle of the field. That's something, there's a different, and I said this on the live stream that I did with Marky D like 5.5 hours into the show, that this was going to be, or maybe it was 2 or 3 because he was picked so much earlier, but I'd said that's going to be an area he's got to fix. He's got to tighten up the missed tackles. 88 stops. So PFF have a stop grade that they do. So basically, if the player makes a play that stops the offense, they give that's what they call a stop. Now, 88 is pretty significant. Keanu Benton has like 54. He had I think it was 27 last year. Now he's in the middle. So you think about stopping those edge runs, shutting down the pass, shutting down a tight end. 88's still really high though. from the position that he played. He had 5 pass defenses. I don't like calling them pass breakups. 6 penalties. 510 snaps he played in college across those 2. Like he played 3 years, but 2 years starter. Now 141 of those were in the slot, which I found interesting, and 1,344 were outside. So that's where he's rushing outside the tackle, according to the way PFF does the lining up at snaps. And I don't love PFF. I'm a PFF and Pro Football Reference guy, more Pro Football Reference, but they don't do the stats that PFF does for the college game. And then he also had 9 sacks, 6 quarterback hits, 17 hurries, 16.7% missed tackles. So he saw that shift up. 35 stops, 3 pass defenses, 3 penalties, 520 snaps in 2022. Of those 520, you saw like a 9-to-1 ratio split. 46 in the slot, 462 on the outside. So definitely an outside play. I understand people saying, can he shift inside? I don't think that's what he's got there. And at a 4.65 40-yard time, don't fully love it. I think you want something a little bit quicker in the way the Steelers play defense. So, that's kind of an interesting perspective. Now, from a grades perspective on PFF, they had him in 2022 an 87.4 defensive grade, pretty high. That's really high up there for 2023. Eligible college player, eligible players for the draft. You have 75.9 stopping the run, 62.3 tackle grading, and 9.19 pass rush grade. Well, he had the 9 sacks, so you can't argue with that. Then in 2021, he had an 83.6 defensive grade, an 81.8 run grade, an 86.1 tackle grade because he only missed, I think it was like 6% of his tackles, and 91.4 pass rush grade. So again, their pass rush grade's really high. Why are you moving him inside? Particularly with the big boppers the Steelers have already got inside. You've got these players that can do this in Orlando Roberts, Cole Holcomb, Mark Robinson. I think he's an outside guy, and that's where they're going to start. Now, I'm going to talk about what Lance Zierlein had to say from NFL.com to the Draft Network, and we're a lot more positive on Lance. I am quite a Lance Zierlein fan. I haven't liked all of the draft profile analysis that he's done this year. That's just just contradicts some of the things that I think, but I mean, he gets paid to do this. But anyway, so Lance had what I do love about how he grades prospects, he does top, things, strengths, and then top weaknesses. But he talks about him being a 3 to 4 outside linebacker, 3 to 4 outside linebacker. That's what he played in the Steelers. He's lacking size and strength, but possesses plenty of athleticism and potential. He can be a slippery rusher with subtle hands and a wicked inside move. And we'll listen more about what the Draft Network had to say about that leaves tackles in the mud. His lack of play strength limits his speed to power rush and his ability to stand his ground against tackles looking to widen him off the mark. He would benefit from a year in the weight room to get ready for NFL edge work, but he might have the instincts and athletic ability for consideration as the off-the-ball linebacker. I like him outside still. And we had Debo Harrison. And Debo Harrison, I mean, there's no questions about his power. And Nick Herbig can go into the weight room and get the same thing out there. Try to at least. That can be his goal. But Justin Harrison wasn't the biggest guy in the world. Wasn't necessarily the most athletic guy in the world. So I don't sit there and want to just basically pigeonhole him for that reason. Now, Next Gen Stats put his production score at an 82, which was put his combine rank at 32. At third, so in terms of he was the third highest, had the third highest production score at the combine, and his overall combine rank was 12. So you think about all the linebackers that went before him, I think he was about, if outside and inside, he would have definitely been, he's definitely outside of 15. I think he's outside the top 20. Still a top 73 player according to Daniel Jeremiah, and the Steelers picked him up with pick 132 and a pick that they got for trading back in round 3, where they got done in Washington. So this is a guy that probably should have gone back into day 2 really early at the top of the 4th round. And we got him, I think it was 19, 20 picks into round 4. So pretty cool from that perspective. But I was a bit more enamored, and it was a much deeper profile, by the Draft Network's profile. So they have him, some interesting things about him. 4-star recruit, was named an All-Hawaii Open Division Defensive Player of the Year in 2019. Played basketball as well. He's a two-sport athlete. Herbig has solid power. They talk about his popping hands in the run game, and that shows in that stop grade that we saw from PFF. They talked about him. I love this quote. There are reps of him working through opposing offensive linemen to clear his path to the football. He anchors well when facing tight ends in run sequences. As a pass rusher, he shows a good variety of moves to use at the top of his rush. Lance Zerline pointed this out. He has an effective cross-chop, dip, rip, bull rush, and a long arm with speed to power conversion. Now, that is the sort of stuff which is why Daniel Jeremiah had him really high. The players don't come into the NFL very often with that many pass rush moves. Certainly not that many like that they've actually developed. And we can call that developed because it was effective. Now, and yes, he could be exposing some poor offensive linemen out there in college, but he played at Wisconsin. He played against solid competition. They said Herbig shows the knowledge of leveraging his pass rusher. He sells the outside arc really well. He applies pressure, and actually it was really well. I shot the sentence when I dropped this in the slide, but he applies pressure to the outside tackle's outside shoulder hip only to cause an overset that allows him space to work back inside the QB, right? So he's getting outside that offensive tackle, getting them off their kilter, slamming back in, and you love it. If you think about how well TJ Watt's been able to adjust to the league, his hand usage helps him to soften angles to easier paths to the quarterback. That's what you want. That, again, these are traits of an outside guy. They talk about him playing with a tremendous motor. Again, that never runs cold. That's what you want out of an outside guy. That's where guys like Kalen Thibodeau, Jermaine Jones, I think is the guy that the New York drafted in the first round last year. You talk about not like the Nolan Smiths. The guys that even the Von Millers. The thing about them is that they have a motor that doesn't run cold, and he's got that. That's what people are evaluating him with. Whether as a backside run defender or a pass rusher, Herbig chases down plays from behind. That is a Steeler trait. How often, and I mean, you don't want to see it because you don't want teams to break the line. But how many times do you see Cameron Howard chasing one down? That also is really good trending for a special teamer. And look at the way he reacted when he was drafted. He's proud to be a Pittsburgh Steel. He will go chase plays down. They said the conundrum is his size, and then they had a few sentences about the off-the-ball linebacker stuff. But when then they listed right up about a week before the draft, actually, yeah, just under a week, just over a week before the draft, they put out a top 4 fits article. And the number 1 fit was the Pittsburgh Steelers. Why? We, like them, we know the Pittsburgh Steelers love their edge rushers from Wisconsin. And he would provide some juice at a 5 tech, but standing him up as an off-the-ball linebacker showcases his athleticism and awareness in coverage. His versatility would slot in nicely. Look, to wrap this one up, I love the pick of N.Herbig. This is fantastic. I didn't love him in the 3rd when people wanted to mock him there, and I don't want to move him inside. People sit there and go, "Oh, we've got Alex Highsmith. We might have to pay Alex Highsmith," and we should, and we probably will. I think I did a show last year when we were back with Steelkurt Network, and I think I put him in about 16.8 million. I'm going to do another one of those, and I think I was going to do it early June once we get through all the draft coverage. But yeah, I mean, you need to rotate guys. We're playing 17 games. We Steelers want to be in the playoffs and win in the playoffs. You can't do it with 2 guys. They got 3 right now with Herbig. They've got Roche, who I was really high coming out of college on, and I was really, really upset when they couldn't keep him when they tried to get into the practice squad in 2021. It burned me hard. I really liked him as a player. I believe production in college translates to the NFL, and he had really good production in college. So we've got a nice 4-guy linebacker room developing. I know there's a few other guys there, but they're the 4 to tease the depth chart show that Marky D and I are going to do in a couple of days' time. They're the ones I'm looking at right now. But anyway, that's N.Herbig. I'm excited about N.Herbig joining the Pittsburgh Steelers. Hope you are too. And yet, as you watch through the preseason, I think this is an outside guy. I don't think it's an inside guy, especially not in his 1st or 2nd year. Definitely not. But stay tuned. We've got lots more to come. And I hope you love the draft. Tell me what you thought of the draft, any other players. Definitely, I was really happy to see some of the thoughts and feelings that had come through. But I was just happy to watch the Steelers get good players and good people as well. Like all the interviews you see with them, they're proud to be a Steeler. They want to be a Steeler. You haven't always felt that at times over the last few years with some of their acquisitions. But yeah, I mean, last few years have been pretty good, but I mean, over the last decade. But yeah, as always, go Steelers.